I'm talking about what I call the Betty White test. Okay. I show pictures of Betty White when she was 85 and 25. And I say, anybody here not know which photo was taken first?
Mhm.
I want to see people look, feel, and behave. I'm not interested in knowing what my biomarkers in my blood say. I want to look, feel, and behave like I'm 25 again. And I think that is going to happen when we have something potent enough to actually lengthen and win that tug of war in all the cells. And that's 3 years away if we could just get this research done. I just want to do the research.
So your vision is that this discovery will reverse wrinkles and gray hair and just completely make us young again?
Yeah, collagen and elastin are definitely been shown to be, their production is controlled by telomere lengths.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Champions Mojo podcast, where we bring you interviews and topics to help you live well and swim well. Conversations especially meaningful for masters swimmers and anyone striving to perform better in the water or in life. We're here to champion you. And now your host, Kelly Pallas.
Hello, friends. I could not be more excited about today's show, and we are going to learn just how fortunate we are to have a guest like Dr. Bill Andrews. Dr. Andrews, welcome to Champions Mojo, and then I'm going to give your introduction.
And please call me Bill.
Oh, Bill. Okay, well,
Dr. Andrews, no more doctor.
Okay, Bill. I appreciate that. Dr. Bill Andrews is a molecular biologist, gerontologist, and the ultimate champion of the telomere theory of aging. As the founder and CEO of Sierra Science, his entire professional mission is on a single purpose: the audacious goal of finding a medical cure for human aging. He views aging not as an inevitable natural law, but as the biological clock governed by the shortening of telomeres, the protective caps on the end of our chromosomes. He is also a passionate ultramarathoner who frequently competes in grueling 100-mile races. And a little-known fact, his connection to water: he was the world record holder for barefoot skiing, the speed record at 74.93 miles per hour back in the day. He's also cemented his legacy as a true pioneer when he led the landmark biotech research team that first discovered and cloned human telomeres, the exact enzyme that prevents cellular aging by rebuilding our chromosomal caps, an achievement honored by Science magazine as a top 10 breakthrough of the year. This groundbreaking discovery earned him National Inventor of the Year, and he has since accumulated over 50 U.S.-issued patents while authoring seminal books like Curing Aging and Telomere Lengthening. Today, as the head of Sierra Sciences, his lab has screened over 300,000 compounds to safely translate this technology into the human body, making him the world's leading voice on the frontier of reversing cellular aging. And I cannot think of an audience that will be more interested in your work than masters athletes and athletes that are trying to maintain our youth. So what are telomeres? Where are they, and how do you look at them?
Well, they're found on the very tips of our chromosomes. Our chromosomes are the things inside of all of our cells that give us our hair color, our eye color. Our chromosomes are like long strings of beads. The beads are called bases. And if you think of this long string of beads as a shoelace, and your shoelace have these caps at the very tips of your shoelaces called aglets, that's what telomeres are to our chromosomes. Telomeres are the aglets of our chromosomes, and they play a role of protecting our chromosomes, similar to the way aglets on our shoelaces protect our shoelaces. Now, the difference is that the only way that the aglets on our shoelaces get shorter is from wear and tear, whereas wear and tear is only a problem if you are like a severe smoker or have some other really dangerous lifestyle habit, like being around a lot of radiation and stuff like that. So the telomere shortening is not really a wear and tear. It's actually a process called the end replication problem, where every time a cell divides and a new DNA has to be made so that the two daughter cells have the same DNA. When a new DNA is made, the cell lacks the ability to make the new DNA all the way to the very end.
So, what would be the first thing, Bill, that we should be thinking about with extending our telomeres?
Think of in all the cells of our body, it's a one-sided tug of war. We have telomeres getting shorter and shorter and shorter. But there are things that we can do now that we can add people to the other side of the tug of war to lengthen them, but not yet to the point where we can win the tug of war, except by a protocol called telomerase gene therapy, which is expensive and risky and still in clinical studies. You said that we cloned telomeres. Well, we actually cloned the enzyme called telomerase. Telomerase is the enzyme that lengthens the telomeres. Okay, is the best way to think of it. And telomeres, they get shorter as we age. They're found at the very tips of our chromosomes. I've known since the 1970s that there had to be something in our cells that were like ride tickets at an amusement park, something that dictated how that our cells can only divide a limited number of times, and that every time a cell divided, it changed in such a way that it got a little bit older in increments that were related to every time a cell divided. We knew that, and the only thing that could explain that was something like ride tickets at an amusement park. And in 1993, somebody else told me that there's things called telomeres at the end of our chromosomes, and they shorten just like ride tickets every time a cell divides. So my whole life has been devoted ever since then to figuring out ways of re-lengthening the telomeres to reverse aging. You called it the telomere theory of aging. It's no longer a theory. It's an absolute fact. Nobody considers this telomere theory of aging a theory anymore. It's actually a fact. It's like there could be other things causing aging, but I like to think of all the things that cause aging as multiple sticks of dynamite burning inside of our cells. And the stick of dynamite with the shortest fuse in humans is telomere shortening. Unless you smoke a lot or are obese and things like that, then you might have accelerated aging in other ways that makes other sticks of dynamite have shorter fuses. But for the actually healthy person that lives a good life, healthy lifestyle, stuff like that, healthy diet, telomere shortening is the absolute most critical thing in the thing that dictates what the limit on our lifespan is, and also as it accounts for all the changes that we see in all of us as we age. That's where there's a synchrony. We all can look at everybody and know approximately how old they are, and because there's a synchrony, even though there's other things that are causing some slight acceleration or slowing down of aging, there's still that synchrony that is controlled by the telomeres. And so the new DNA is always shorter, and as a result, you've lost a ride ticket every time your cells divide. And it's I could keep on talking, but interrupt anytime you want.
So I have a question just before I forget my question. So you're saying, of course, right at this point, we cannot lengthen our telomeres. Can we do something to keep from shortening them, or doing shorter rides, or using less tickets?
Yeah. And let me talk about that now, and then I'll get back to it. I didn't say we can't lengthen them. I say we can't lengthen them enough to win the tug of war. So we can lengthen, but the lengthening doesn't win the tug of war with the shortening yet, except with gene therapy. But a lot of things you can do to prevent what I call accelerated telomere shortening, which is accelerated aging. And one of the worst things people can do is smoke. So smoking causes a lot of free radicals, a lot of inflammation, and both those things cause wear and tear of our telomeres. Okay, and so they get shorter. But so solution there is quit smoking. Okay, but there's a whole lot of things. Anything that causes inflammation, anything that causes oxidative stress is going to cause accelerated telomere shortening. And so I think it's to decrease the rate of telomere shortening, you've got to lead a anti-inflammatory lifestyle. Okay. And let me go to exercise first, because a lot of people say that endurance exercise is very inflammatory. And that's true for some people. If you are, I'm going to use running as an example, but I want to make it clear that endurance exercise can be kayaking, bicycling, hiking, anything, but
Swimming.
swimming, especially if you're doing one of those like Ironman triathlons, which I would love to do someday. But the if you run, I'm going to use running as an example. If you run like once every 2 weeks and then enter a marathon, you'll do okay. Okay. But you'll be on your hands and knees throwing up afterwards, and you'll be stiff as a board from inflammation for 2 weeks afterwards. Okay. It's because the body gets this message, the brain gets this message saying something is attacking your joints. Send immune cells to those joints to fight whatever it is. And that's what inflammation is. It's accumulation of all these cells that are fighting whoever the invader is. And when you're running, there is no invader. So it's a false alarm, but you still get the inflammation. So, but if you are a person who does endurance exercise every day, okay, and then when you go out running, you keep it fun, even during races, and then quit if it quits being fun and save it for another day, you'll find out that you can exercise all the time, never have inflammation. You can, I've done measurements, taken blood work from runners before, during, and after ultra marathons, and then interviewed them and found out what, things supplements are taking and stuff like that. And was able to come up with the conclusion that, boy, if you keep it fun and consistent, your body never, ever thinks you have some invader, and it thinks it's normal. You build what's called immune tolerance to exercise. And so that's one of the best things you can do to decrease the rate of accelerated telomere shortening or accelerated aging, because actually lack of exercise accelerates aging. So it's a Goldilocks effect. So no exercise causes aging. Too much exercise causes accelerated aging. Find the place in the middle.
So in swim training, swimmers generally, we will work hard and be very sore, and you probably get less sleep because you're getting up to swim. Most good swim practices are early in the morning, and you might swim hard for several weeks where you're sore and you're tired, and you're probably inflamed from what I'm hearing. And then you taper off. It's kind of the standard way and I'm sure runners do it as well, but swimmers do it. And then when you swim the event, you feel great because you've rested a little bit and you're fresh. And even if it might be a longer swim, a mile or even a 5,000 or something in open water, is that training approach causing inflammation if we're doing proper nutrition and recovery?
Well, pain is not inflammation. Okay, so you do expect to get pain, but the inflammation is something that can then migrate to your joints if you don't do the pain all the time. The body can think the pain's normal, so it's not going to be bothered. And then when all that inflammation gets to your joints, that's what causes the injuries. Okay, so pain doesn't cause injuries. It's all the inflammation building up there that actually leads to the injuries that occur oftentimes. The number one secret weapon to doing well in any kind of endurance sports is tapering. Okay, tapering makes all the difference in the world. And even in my endurance races.
What is your weekly average?
It changes. I'd say lately, because of the workload I've got, it's probably like 20 miles on the average. But when I'm really training for 100-mile races, I actually have a routine where I run 70 miles per week, 72 actually. It's like
Wow.
5 on Monday, 8 on Tuesday, 15 on Wednesday, 5 on Thursday, nothing on Friday, 25 on Saturday, and 15 on Sunday. Anybody who wants to do the math can add that up, and it comes at 72 miles. Yeah.
Yes. And your age is pretty obvious. You're not in your 40s or 50s after all that you've accomplished in your life. So we always talk about how old we are on this podcast because we all swim in age groups and masters. Tell us your age and that this running routine that you've been doing.
I'm 74, but I've been running my whole life. I competed in cross country and track in high school and college. I've started marathons right after that. Been doing ultra marathons since the early 1990s. But I want to make one point. You said old.
Yes.
I never use that word. Unless
Love it. Tell me. Teach me.
Longer lived. Okay.
Longer lived.
So
Yeah.
you are longer lived than a person that's 45. When I talk about aging at medical conferences and stuff like that, I never talk about eliminating the old from society as a mechanism to increase species success in changing environments. I say eliminating the longer lived because
But do we want to eliminate the longer lived?
we don't, but our species does.
Oh, our
Okay.
species does. Why?
So there's several theories on why we age, and several of them are religious. Okay, saying that we were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, and with the great flood, that was another reason where God reduced our age. There's other religions that talk about how God created aging for us, so that, or the Greek gods will say, because they didn't want us competing with them. Those ones are all easy to explain. Okay, the toughest one to explain is why would evolution have us age? And more importantly, why did we never evolve a way not to age? Okay. Now, I'm a scientist, so I have no beliefs in anything unless I absolutely know for certain. So I'm not going to say one way or another, but the evolutionary explanation for why we age is, and it's not a theory, it's a fact right now. There's absolutely no question about it. In order for a species to survive rapidly changing environments, the best thing that species can do is have a lot of diversity within the species, so that the chances increase that at least some members of that species will survive the new environment. Okay, so how does a species increase diversity? Well, the biggest thing that ever happened to increase diversity was 2 billion years ago, was the onset of sexual reproduction, because then we started shuffling our genes, and that created a tremendous amount of diversity. Well, almost just like a few million years after that, we evolved aging, because it turned out there was more diversity created by allowing the offspring to interbreed as opposed to the parents rebreeding. Okay. So when you let the offspring that had already tremendous amount of diversity because of the breeding between the parents, when you let the offsprings interbreed, they had even more diversity in their and the parents' grandchildren. So it turned out that almost all successful species, from success by surviving rapidly changing environments, did so by finding a way to eliminate the longer lived. Okay, so genetics can cause things to accelerate telomere shortening too. So that's why our average age is pretty much in the high 70s, early 80s, as opposed to 125. And nobody in modern days has ever lived to be 125. Even the stories of some woman named Jean Comet living to be 122 have now been shown not to be true. Her daughter took her place to prevent inheritance taxes. And so maybe there's been one person that says lived to be 120, but what I'm doing, and in fact, what I'm doing right now, even though we can't win the tug of war, things that I have discovered so far can actually add people to the lengthening side of the tug of war. Even though it's not winning, it's slowing it down. And I believe that people are now going to be exceeding 125 years, not just lifespan, but also health span. So to be healthy too. There are 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds that are already using some of my discoveries. And they've actually showing reversal of aging. And this was kind of a surprise, but then when I realized, no, it shouldn't have been a surprise, because we did know already from many publications and work from my labs and other labs that when telomeres get really, really short, they become easier to lengthen. So there's papers published that saying that telomerase, this enzyme telomerase, will preferentially lengthen the shortest telomeres. So when you're 80 or 90 years old and you want to be rejuvenated, you actually can with things that exist now.
What does that look like when you say you are working with or have seen 80 and 90-year-olds reverse aging? What does reversing aging look like in those people?
It's mostly like, let's say I know one 85-year-old woman who just turned, oh no, I'm sorry, she just turned 95. Okay. That when she first started taking one of the products, actually, this is the product right here. It's called Telovital. Okay. It's a company called Touchstone Essentials. I didn't make the product. I just believe in the product because it contains several ingredients that I discovered. Okay. And then this company took those ingredients and made this product.
Do you take it?
I liked it. That's why it's sitting here.
Okay.
Take it every day. She was 94 at the time. She was using a walker. She was on Zoom calls with me with her daughter because sometimes her daughter had to communicate for her. She's very unenthusiastic, very depressed. Now she's dancing at her 95th birthday, videos of her dancing at Zoom calls I have with her. She can't shut up. She's the most enthusiastic person on the planet. It's like her hair color is coming back. Her hair's gone from, so as a scientist, I can't say that hair color proves reversal aging because she could be coloring her hair for all I know, but she can't be pretending on the other things I'm seeing. Okay. And also I got to say, this is not scientific yet. This is still anecdotal. We have not done clinical studies because I'm not focused on trying to study this product. I'm focused on trying to find ingredients that are even better than the ones in here that will actually win this tug of war. Okay. And so that's what we do here at my company. We have these high throughput robots that can, they don't look humanoid, but they're robots that can test up to 4,000 different plant extracts or molecules of any kind a day. Okay. Looking for more and more potent things. The biggest problem with doing these screens is it costs us $2 million a month to do. And we rarely have that kind of funding. So it goes a little bit slower. If we could keep testing 4,000 samples a day, we can extrapolate from all of our successes so far and say that we could win that tug of war in 3 years from now. Okay. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to. And I think it's going to change the planet when it happens, because that is, without a doubt, going to make us look, feel, and behave younger again. And I'm not talking about measuring aging by biomarkers. I mean, most of the time when people measure aging by biomarkers, they're not actually measuring, they're measuring something else besides aging. And actually, sometimes product that they're testing is actually accelerating aging. I'm talking about what I call the Betty White test. Okay, I show pictures of Betty White when she was 85 and 25. And I say, anybody here not know which photo was taken first? Mm-hmm. I want to see people look, feel, and behave. I'm not interested in knowing what my biomarkers in my blood say. I want to look, feel, and behave like I'm 25 again. And I think that is going to happen when we have something potent enough to actually lengthen and win that tug of war in all the cells. And that's 3 years away if we could just get this research done. I just want to do the research. People can actually go to my website, which I think you put a link for on this. And there'll be a button there that says key videos and documentaries. And in there, they can look at the data that I show from testing everything. And I don't name the product because I don't want cease and desist letters. And I have gotten my share in the past from actually naming products. But I call them like brand A, brand B, brand C, brand D for supplements. And then there's also, I've tested a lot of diets, a lot of lifestyles, and a lot of therapies. And not a single one of them actually lengthens telomeres. Okay. In fact, what they do, and I explain this in great depth in some of these videos, they measure the person's telomeres lengths in their blood beforehand and then measure them again after treatment. And they'll find that after treatment, their telomeres in the blood are longer. And that's true. but they didn't get lengthened. Okay. And they're only measuring the average telomere length. And so I want to use an analogy here. If you have a company and you fire your dumbest employees, the average IQ of your company increases without anybody getting any smarter. Now think of your blood cells as employees, okay? And now think of the treatment as doing something that's killing the cells with the shortest telomeres, because there's lots of studies showing that cells with short telomeres are more sensitive to toxins and things like that. And you're killing the cells with the shortest telomeres. Well, just like your company, the average length of the telomeres and the cells that remain are going to be longer. Okay. And this is really scary because people say, well, that's good. The average length of telomeres are longer, but cells have to divide to replace those killed cells. And as a result, from the cell division, telomeres get shorter. So your net result is, even though the cells in your blood are longer, the telomeres in your whole body are short. Okay, so you're accelerating aging. The other side of the analogy, imagine that company, now you hired a bunch of geniuses. Again, the average IQ of your company increases without anybody getting any smarter. That same thing can happen if the treatment or supplement or whatever you're doing is actually like causing an immune response. Okay, there's cells in your bone marrow that have long telomeres even when you're 90 years old. Okay, well, if you induce those cells to divide, which is how you induce an immune response, those cells will start dividing, infiltrate your blood, and suddenly there's new cells added to your blood that have longer telomeres. Think of your blood cells as employees, and you hired a bunch of geniuses. The average length of the telomeres got longer without any lengthening. But because of all the cell division in your bone marrow and subsequently afterwards, you're actually getting older. So this is a really big problem, and it scares me because a lot of people are doing a lot of things they think are reversing their aging. They're actually accelerating their aging because looks can be deceiving. Okay. It's like, so microdermabrasion is a really good example. A lot of people, men and women, do microdermabrasion or laser treatments and things like that of their skin. What it does is it kills the cells on your surface of your skin. And that causes other cells to divide to replace those cells. And that makes you look younger. But that's what I meant by looks are deceiving. They're actually older. Okay. And that's why a lot of the longer lived movie stars would have prune faces, or what are called skeleton faces, because they have exhausted all the telomeres in their skin cells. So they can no longer replace those killed off cells from all the damage they've done by what they thought was rejuvenating their skin. They were accelerating the aging of their skin. The same thing happens with taking any kind of hormone that induces cell division. Bodybuilding, unfortunately, does too. That induces cell division, which causes accelerated telomere shortening.
Wait. I have to. So bodybuilding, like strength training, like real heavy lifting heavy weights, or just bodybuilding?
Strength training doesn't really do it, because really the building up of muscles isn't really from cell division. It's from taking nuclei out of other cells and adding a bunch of nuclei, making the cells bigger. But strength training is okay, but bodybuilding actually does induce a lot of cell division. And this might be, I don't want to mention names, but we know a lot of famous bodybuilders that when they get to be 60s, they look worse than their friends their same age. And this is why. But okay, I want to make one thing clear.
Okay.
What's the point of living a long time if you're not living? Okay. So if microdermabrasion is important to you, do it. If bodybuilding is important to you, do it. If that's what makes life worth living to you, do it. Because I'll have a solution. Okay. As soon as we continue this research enough to get those pills, I want it to be a pill, because I want everybody to be afforded. I don't want to be responsible for creating something that only the wealthy can afford. I want everybody to be able to afford it. Sometimes I talk with my investors how I just want to drop it from airplanes when we have something that is so potent that it lengthens telomeres. And that could be in 3 years from now. But that will reverse all the effects of the microdermabrasion, all the effects of bodybuilding, all the effects of what is called, what I didn't mention before, is immune stimulation. When you stimulate your immune system, or this is the other thing, when you stimulate the production of stem cells, that causes accelerated telomere shortening. People see benefits from doing that, and I'm glad they do. But they need to realize that they're gonna pay for it later. Okay, when they suddenly start running out of telomeres.
Okay, so I want to circle back a little bit to the telomere lengthening, but before we do, what are your thoughts on peptides? This seems to be a huge thing that I hear from a lot of my athletic friends. Oh, I'm on this peptide or that peptide, and it's going to do this. There's a peptide for everything now.
Well, every time there's a new like toy in town, or boom, or something like that, and peptides is the new toy in town. And the reason it's a toy in town is because it's easy for any chiropractor or anybody to actually get into the business, because there's companies that will provide them with everything they need, and then they market it and things like that. Every time there's a business like that, there's a lot of charlatans. It's an opportunity for charlatans to get into the field. And I would say there's a few peptides that really do work, but most of them are completely fraudulent. Okay. And so it's really care. And that's the reason I have my own podcast called Up One. Okay. It means take things up a notch. So I don't just do analysis of the literature and stuff like that, what's called meta-analysis, to find out if peptides are working. Because there's a lot of, even in the scientific peer-reviewed literature, there's a lot of papers that have been published that should have never been allowed to be published, because people know how to get them, have them fall through the cracks and get leaked, even though they're not real, but just so they can use them to market a product. So I do what's called critical meta-analysis peer-reviewed studies, which means I look at the experimental design, I look at the data analysis, I look at the construct validity, the statistical theory, all the kind of stuff in these papers. And I decide which papers are real and which are not real. And in the case of peptides, I have found a lot of the studies to be false. Okay. So in meta-analysis, you get two piles of paper. One pile says one thing, another pile says another thing. When you do critical meta-analysis, you only have one pile. So that's what my podcast called Up One is all about. And people can go to that and hear me talk about these different things. I go to conferences, I speak at conferences. There's booths at the expos at the conferences where people are marketing this peptide and stuff like that. And I'll go up to them and I say, hey, do you have any data showing that your product produces telomerase? And they'll say, yeah. And then they'll show me the data. I say, that's not telomerase. And I'll leave them stumped. But I'll tell you, it's that those peptides don't work at all. But for every peptide that works, there's 20 to 30 that don't work. Okay. And that's something to be really scary about. The same is true for the stem cell field, the exosome field.
Exosome. I don't even know what that is.
Exosomes are there. So stem cells, I got to start with talking about stem cells. Stem cells are something that we've known that if you inject stem cells into your body, they somehow cause things to get repaired, rejuvenate, and things like that. And it's because they're secreting things called cytokines that are communicating with cells to make cells fix themselves, either sometimes by cell division. Unfortunately, that causes telomere shortening, but at least that's it, they're fixing things. Well, later on, for a long time, we've known this, but only later on people start realizing it's actually the exosomes, which are little small cells that don't have chromosomes in them or anything like that bead off of the stem cells that are actually doing all the communication. Okay. So a guy in Colorado and a guy down in Panama, those people are the top stem cell people in the world. And I'll think of their names. In fact, I've always been troublesome at remembering names and stuff like that. It's not something that's happened as I've gotten longer lived.
I love the longer lived, and I want to talk about that a little bit. So you try not to use the word old at all, or like if somebody asks you how old you are, I mean, what is the limit of using the word old? Because am I 65 years old, or am I 65 years lived?
Well, if I ask
yeah.
somebody how old they are, I do use the word old.
Okay. Okay.
Because it say, how long lived are you? That sounds awkward. Okay.
Okay.
So I
But
say,
it makes a point. I like it actually.
but I will call a person old if they are just doing the worst thing possible in their lifestyle and things like that. And they only have themselves to blame for the condition they're in. Okay. And I mean, if it's because of genetics, I would never call them old. But if it's because they've been just abusing their bodies the whole time, all their life, then I'll say, hey, you've gotten pretty old. But otherwise, I say longer lived. Because let me just say this: living is the greatest thing that ever happened to any of us. Okay, and I challenge anybody to come up with something better that's ever happened to any of us besides living. And I love living, and I hate the idea that living can become any less lovable for any of us just because of this dumb thing called aging. And I call it dumb because people can go and listen to the why we age videos, and you'll see that aging is not necessary. It's actually beneficial for the species, but it's terrible for the individual. And I consider us now to be smarter than evolution. And so I'm trying to undo the effects of evolution. And because I think it was dumb for the individual. And I'm trying to make it so that we can live long and healthy and not cause burdens on society, which I hope other people's will resolve, because how will the young ever get jobs if the old never retire? Is the example I always use is the chaos that's going to occur from making people live longer. We're also going to get overpopulation, which is another problem that's kind of easy to solve. But I have faith in the fact that humans can adapt to anything, just like we did to the World Wide Web. I don't know if you're younger than me, you might remember how tough it was when we first had it thrust down our throats. World Wide Web, we couldn't use it. Now we can't live without it. I mean, it's like, yeah, so we adapted. We'll adapt to living longer too. And 100 years from now, if somebody says we should ban the cure for aging because there are problems, nobody's going to want to go back to the way things are now. Nobody really knows how bad things are now because nobody, except me, goes to hospices or assisted living homes or nursing homes and talks to the people that are there in their 80s and 90s that are stuck in there. They're trapped in there. It's like a jail. They're miserable. They're depressed. They understand their families can't take care of them, stuff like that. But yeah, I know I'm
Yeah.
going on tangents.
So no. I took care of my dad. Not directly taking care of him, but I lived near him for the last 7 years of his life. He died at 95, and he was a retired attorney, mentally sharp, totally there, 100% there, better memory than anybody I know. And he was just trapped in his body. He couldn't walk. He was bedbound almost the last year of his life. He had balance issues. He was incontinent. And his life was miserable. It was his last 7 years of his life was just miserable. So your vision is that this discovery, which we hope will be dropped from airplanes, will reverse wrinkles and gray hair and just completely make us young again?
Yeah, collagen and elastin are definitely been shown to be, their production is controlled by telomere lengths. Okay. We've done experiments here in the petri dishes, human cells. We've shortened telomeres, lengthened them, shortened them, lengthened them. And we found all kinds of different genes, including collagen, go up and down, up and down, up and down in terms of their production, as just totally with nothing changing except the telomere length. It's really important that people understand this. We can lengthen telomeres, okay, with this product, TeloVital. Okay, this is the only product that actually does induce the production of telomerase. Okay, so it does add people to the side, but if they lengthen, but remember, it's a two-step process. First, the cell divides, the telomeres get shortened, then the lengthener comes in and lengthens. Okay, shorten, lengthen. Now, in the case of this, it comes in and lengthens, but not as much as the shortening had occurred. So it still loses the tug of war, but it is lengthening. So as a result, it is possibly, we won't know for a few years, going to allow people to live longer than 125 years. But now let me get to your...
Okay, wait. Before you go to the question that I asked. So as a master swimmer who's trying to have my peak performance every year, if this supplement, what is it, TeloVital, if it actually does what it's what you hope it's going to do. How does that translate into my swim times?
If you have any cells in your body with critically short telomeres, and you almost certainly do, those ones should get telomeres getting longer, okay, which will be a reversal of aging in yourself. But I got to qualify, we do not have the studies on that with TeloVital yet, okay? And we never will, because by the time we got those studies done, we'd have a product that's even better than TeloVital, okay? But we do know from all kinds of other studies with gene therapies and stuff like that, that when the telomeres do get critically short, they do lengthen, okay? Even though the longer ones still get shorter, okay? And lengthening those critical short telomeres might be the reason why we're seeing the age reversal in these, that 95-year-old woman and the 84-year-old man that I was telling you about. I haven't actually talked about him at all, but and a lot of people are seeing this kind of stuff. So you should see performance benefits. I have seen performance benefits from TeloVital, okay? And my endurance got better. My vision got better. This product is not my coup de grace, okay? My coup de grace is something that's going to be called TeloVital, but it's going to have ingredients in it that are going to be potent enough to actually win the tug of war in all of our cells, on all of our chromosomes, and show age reversal. That'll increase your chances of being able to live healthy to 125. Genetics plays a big role, and there's so many other things that are factors that.
So if certainly, I'll put the link and the information about the supplements, but is there like lifestyle changes if someone just says, I want,
Yes.
besides supplements, what other things would you recommend for
Lifestyle
anti-inflammatory?
is exercise. Like I said, keep it fun and keep it consistent. Yoga, meditation. I'm a keynote speaker at yoga meditation conferences a lot. I'll show data showing that they have longer telomeres than their friends their same age that don't do yoga and meditation, because it decreases psychological stress, okay? And other things in your body that cause accelerated telomere shortening. Don't smoke, don't be obese. Obesity causes all kinds of accelerated inflammation and oxidative stress. Be optimistic. Having an anti-inflammatory diet is really important. And here's something that's really, really important. Everybody should take what's called the ALCAT test, ALCAT. And they can Google it if you don't put the link. They can Google it, but just say ALCAT test. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of hits for Alcatraz. Okay.
Okay.
And it tells you all the foods that cause inflammation in you. Okay. I get this test done every single year. The LCAT test is the only one. And
Is that a blood test?
it's a blood test.
Yeah.
They'll actually arrange to have a phlebotomist come to your home or your office, or you can go to your own phlebotomist and have the blood drawn and send it in. But as I said, I get it done every year, and I find what foods I'm sensitive to, and I quit eating those foods. A year later, it's okay to eat those foods again, because I've developed immune tolerance as by staying away from that food. For biomarkers of aging, the company called True Diagnostic is probably the best company. A guy named Ryan Smith has just put together the best algorithm ever for taking all the markers and coming up with a solution, an answer for what is your biological age. And again, I get no compensation from any of this stuff. My whole life is just based on trying to make the world happier and healthier.
It's clear this is a passion of your life, and I really hope we see it in the near future. The last question to close us out here that I always ask every guest is there anything that I have not asked you that you would like to share with the audience?
People can go to my website and click on this key videos and documentaries and hear about everything else. You're not going to find it anywhere else.
Well, we will put all of this in the show notes so people can find that. And certainly, I'm so grateful for this time today. I've learned so much. This has just been amazing. And thanks for all your time here and everything you're doing. And stay on the line, because I want to talk to you about how I can get you to swim that 2.4 miles in your Ironman.
I would love to know. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I have a technique for you that I think will work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Champions Mojo podcast. Would you consider leaving us a 5-star review on Apple? That's like getting a best time for us. Kelly and our team would be so grateful. See you next week for another boost of mojo.